Hey everyone, happy Wednesday and welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk tabletop, video game dev, and all things Gundam. I hope everyone is having a good day and a great week. I'm Steven, of course, and joining me as always is the brilliant Adam Blue of Gundam Explained. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing good. Glad to be here. It's always nice after a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to then have a moment to just talk about things other than life's daily struggles. So,
Yeah, no kidding. It's a good midweek break. I think that's the thing that I love the most about streaming on Wednesdays is, you know, everyone's got their weekends planned. That's a given, but to break up the monotony of the work week for those of us that are slaves to the 9 to 5, it's nice to be able to sit down and chat about things that are more interesting.
oh yeah, oh yeah, that's definitely the case. And then yeah, John Gavin. Happy Wednesday night, Hatter. Had my first sesh of Gundam 5e and saw the new Top Gun.
Ooh,
Mm,
awesome. I've heard some good things about the new Top Gun, and I heard it was a
yeah.
record-breaking weekend for it. Um,
Yeah, that is actually kind of cool. The type of movie it is for it to I always like to hear good news about movies. It's not like I was excited about Top Gun. I'm interested in watching it, but it's nice to when things are popular. All that.
yeah, yeah. What's going on, Ultronymous? I do want to
Hey.
hear about that first session of Gundam 5e, but I'm gonna spoil it for everyone. We don't have any Gundam 5e updates to talk about this evening, but we do have some Gunpla to talk about this evening.
Mhm.
Actually, we have a pretty full slate of topics to cover tonight. We have a lot of fun things to show off, and so I'm
Oh
looking
yeah.
forward to getting into it. Um, the one thing that I will say about Top Gun is I was very excited to see that they brought back Val Kilmer. I haven't seen the movie yet either, but I did hear that Val Kilmer makes a brief cameo in there, which is great for him because, if you have followed the Val Kilmer story and, his battle with a throat cancer, I
Yeah,
mean, it's heart wrenching.
it
Um,
is.
so,
I think on Amazon there's a movie about it.
yep.
It's like a documentary about him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I've cried that much since watching Up.
Ugh, I don't like things that make me cry. I don't know if that's good or bad. Like I'll sit through like Final Destination when I'm like scared someone's about to die, but if something's gonna make me cry, I'm like,
Yeah, it's you definitely got to be in the mood for it, right?
yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Good deal. What's
And
up, Alan? What's up, Ryan? How y'all
yeah,
doing?
full house. Good to see everybody.
Yeah, yeah, good to see everybody in chat. So without much further ado, I think we should probably go ahead and hop right into our topics du jour, which
Yeah.
in this case, you have some Gunpla to share with us, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I do. So I went from off and on building to just full on building. And sometimes I like to do things all the way if possible. With Gunpla, there's a lot if you want to go all the way. There's
Definitely.
how you build it, there's the nubs, there's the paint and decals, top coating. So in my journey, even though I consider myself a decent builder, I don't know if there's tiers or ranks for that. I'm at the point now where I'm wanting to experiment more with top coats. In the past, I would use a matte finish when I was done, and I don't think I was always doing it correctly. I don't know if you or others are familiar. Sometimes you put on a matte finish, and it almost looks like it's chalky or spotty in a way where I think that's telling me it's not fully on. Whereas with the gloss top coat, I can spray it to the point where it looks like it's wet, like it just ran underwater. And then if I let that set, it looks brilliant. So what I wanted to show off was here is and I don't know how clear it's going to be,
Oh wow, the
but
the autofocus on that actually popped up really well.
that's why I switched to this lens. I had a better lens, but I switched to this one because it does the autofocus. So this is with the matte finish, and you can kind of tell it's on there. Although a lot of times when I look at pictures of something with a matte finish on it, um, it like jumps out at me. So I'm
Yeah.
so I feel maybe I don't know. I think it looks good, but the gloss finish wasn't bad either, but I think the gloss almost makes it look too much like a plasticky figure.
That's always been my major criticism when it comes to a gloss coat, and I think I might even be able to show off some better looking footage of that particular kit because right here I have queued up
Oh,
Gundam Blue Destiny Unit 3 panel line gloss and matte top coat For those of you who have not subscribed to the Gundam Explained YouTube channel, we have oh, here we go. Restarted there for some reason. Uh this is Adam's channel, and this is the sort of out of box review that you did, correct?
Yep, exactly. And this review is a little different than some of mine because even though I kind of showed off what it is, the look of it, what I think is cool, I really wanted to talk about my technique on it because I think I'm starting to think like, sometimes it seems like a high barrier or it's scary to get into when it comes to building Gunpla, all the little things you can do to go the extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's as hard as it may seem. And I think you'll be happy with the results. So in this, I'm just talking about where decal placement was, how I did the panel lining. And I think I might do that for future videos. Yeah, and actually in this one, I even showed screenshots of when it had the glass or the gloss coat on it and how it looked pretty good like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, personally, I think that the finished product looks fantastic. I liked the
Great.
combination of the gloss and matte. So you did gloss first to allow the panel lining to flow into the channels a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, that's what I read online. In the past I'd never done that. So yeah, I did the gloss coat so I could do the panel lining, and when I was done cleaning the panel lining, I would then add the decals, and then I did the top. Now, here's one I want to show real quick where I did a gloss coat. Let's see if it's kind of dark. Hopefully that. Yeah, this is with a gloss coat, and it looks cool.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm like, the gloss actually looks good also. So
it's pretty
and this
striking,
is
that
a
reflective
yeah.
finish.
Yeah, this is with and you can almost tell, if you look at the knees, and it's gonna be it might be hard to tell. One has a better gloss look than the other. It's hard to tell, but basically what I'm learning is there needs to be a certain level of coat you are putting on it to really get the result you want, and I think it's just a matter of, practicing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and
um
top coats are like they're kind of like nail polish because they're self-leveling. So when you, like you said, when you spray it on to the point where it looks wet, it's not going to dry like that. It's not going to, like, sometimes it'll look
okay.
like you put too much on, but then after
Mhm.
it dries, you see that it hardens up and it kind of levels itself out, which is nice.
Okay. Yeah,
Um
that's cool because 'cause I'm actually gonna do that next with this
the
here.
Hizanthale?
Yeah. So one actually, this is a finished product, but I messed up. So with this is there's a matte finish on it. It might be hard to tell. I mean, this thing is unwieldy. I did the gloss, then I did the panel lines, then I did the matte, but I forgot the decals. So I did the decals after the matte finish. Because then I could go back and do another layer.
True.
Um,
Yeah, you can.
be, because some of it does look spotty in a way, chalky. It's like it's like you can see too much of the texture. So I feel like I probably didn't do enough. And something to add. I know I'm talking so much, but I was using
Oh,
the here we go specifically Mr. Super Clear. I think I was showing that on the video.
yeah.
This amount is you could probably only do 1 to 2. I think with this amount. Um, because I ran out.
Yeah.
I was working on 3 kits that I don't think I covered enough, and they ran out, so just FYI there.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up the tools that you used, the Mr. Topcoat, because I'm probably going to offend all of the Gunpla builders in the audience here when I talk about the stuff that I use, which um this is my go-to, is the Krylon matte finish. You can get this at any, like, Home Depot, Lowe's, supply
Yeah, Walmart.
store type
It's like a
thing.
third the price.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot more of it to work with because a lot of those top coats that are specifically designed for model kits are smaller. This is a 11 ounce. I tried the Rust-Oleum matte clear enamel, which this is a huge 15-ounce can. I do not recommend this one because I had several kits, including my Eric Blanc custom Zaku, which when I top coated it using that Rust-Oleum, um, I'm not sure if it was just the humidity in the air, but I did get a lot of like shrinkage on the kit, and so it almost looked like it was like there was like a layer of skin on top that had shrunken up and dried and gotten crackly. So I've had to repaint the shoulder armor on this kit between 6 and 7 times because of the ruined top coat. Which, if you ever do ruin a top coat, I don't know if this will work with the Mr. Super Clear, but um, 48 hours in a bleach solution will strip any paint or top coat that you've got on your Gunpla without damaging the part, which is, good if you don't want to like soak it in acetone because obviously that'll melt it. But
Oh yeah.
bleach is a good solvent um for treating that. And I actually I don't know if my camera's probably not good enough to autofocus, but I did just matte coat him again after applying a couple of decals. I'm still going to apply a couple more water slides to him, but yeah, this Krylon matte finish, for the value that you get out of it, and I can probably finish about 2.5, 3 kits off of just this can. So
So that's probably a better representation on how to use it. And in fact, when I first did top coating, that's what I used. And
really,
I will say, after using the Mr. Super Clear, there's no difference that I can see. Now with the enamel one, I want to say it's possible that it's because it's an enamel. Because I was researching something, and because I painted you know how some Gundam GMs or Gundam models down near the crotch, it will have like the yellow V fin,
yeah,
and sometimes there's no color separation in the kit. And then I bought a yellow enamel paint and I painted it, and then later it kind of did shrink like a skin that was on top of it, and I'm all like, so I was looking up and they're like, yeah, enamel is hit or miss. It depends how you've I guess prepared it, but a lot of times they say go with acrylic.
yeah.
So
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that as well because and Alan in the chat mentioned the hand painted kit that he did, which is a gorgeous kit, by the way. This is the hand painted Zaku that I did, and I will confirm that this is 100% acrylic paint. And I read that you should not mix acrylics and enamels.
hmm.
It's funny. My grandfather was actually an art professor at Arkansas State University,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it was a huge kind of running joke in my family because when he was kind of taking up hobbies after he retired, he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do paintings for everyone in the family," and he's got his paint palette set up and he's got oils and acrylics and stuff like that, and my aunt's screaming at him like, "You can't mix these, like this isn't gonna work," and he's just like, "What are you talking about?" So I'm
That's
sitting there
cool.
like, well, here I am generation 3 later and I'm still doing the same thing, mixing acrylics
Uh,
and enamels.
that's funny, but I think that's a good example of this barrier because
Yep.
if you try something and you don't get the result you want, it might demotivate you to continue. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
So, and that's the great thing about Gunpla in general is you can always find a community of people online to share your experiences with, and we've all screwed up, we've all made mistakes, we've all done something wrong, and we have some knowledge on how to fix it, right?
yeah,
The collective we.
yeah. No, and then yeah, Alan in the chat is saying he did between 6 or 7 layers based on the area, and he did that many coats because one, he didn't know how much it would need, and yeah, that's something that you just don't know. You have to figure it out. And then
It's true.
two, I wasn't doing the coats so generously. That's another thing I've figured out from this. Yeah, it's about really applying a lot on there. I've also heard you want to press it down all the way, not just like zap,
Yeah.
real quick. So,
And
oh,
that's
also,
oh, go ahead.
no, yeah, I was warm water. So a few minutes putting the can in warm water and then shaking it between a few sprays. Like I'll keep shaking it. So, and this was just for me researching online, as you were just talking about, where there's a lot of people online with that info. So,
Because it will start to separate, yeah, like you said. And I think that another thing that helps, and this is kind of a waste of material, but again, if you're gonna buy like a value option like a Krylon from Lowe's, spray far away. do not like get right up on the
Mm,
kit. You want to be
okay.
at least 6, 7 inches away. If you're using something like this, I would even say be a foot away from the part and just constantly be moving, which you're going to get stuff everywhere, but you're going to get a nice, even, consistent coat throughout instead of these little like pools and pockets.
Okay. That's good to know. Now I'm wondering if what your thought is on this. I was gonna just go back with another matte coat on the this uh Advance of Zeta one just to try to get rid of that weird chalky look. I don't know if doing another coat after so long is bad for it. Um
I would say go for it because honestly, I had, and again, I want to try and show off if I can the finish on this guy because I have hit him with several matte coats over the course of working on it, and so I have matte coated it after I painted it, matte coated it after I panel lined it, and now I've applied a third matte coat over just these decals, and I'm still not done adding decals. And I
oh,
think even Mecha Gaikotsu did a whole video on YouTube where he matte coated a Wing Zero kit 100 times, and he went through like 7 cans of gloss coat.
yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that so
It doesn't ruin it, but it did
yeah.
look pretty bad.
And even um let's see, where was I just reading this? Yeah, Alan was saying I used all acrylic paints. Just seemed like a nice choice of it being all water based.
Yes.
You just have to deal with the multiple layers. So I think that's the thing. The acrylic seems to be the good way to go. Does require, yeah, being generous, multiple layers. But did you? And I only did this because I'm only following directions based on what I'm seeing online, seeing what seems to be successful. And someone was saying do a gloss coat first and then a matte. And I don't know what that's supposed to do. You were saying you did a matte, then another matte, so maybe I could just do that? Uh,
Now that has to do with the panel lining, I would say,
oh, okay.
because you use a liquid panel liner, whereas I use
Yeah.
pens,
Okay.
and
Okay.
so the pens I need like a little bit of grit, a little bit of texture to grab onto when I'm drawing the panel lines in. But if
Oh,
you
yeah.
but if you were to try and do like a liquid panel liner, which those always produce better results, like you said. I mean, you have to clean them up afterwards, but they get
It
into
does look
every
good.
nook and cranny without having to kind of force the issue. But
Yeah.
if you were to try and do that with a matte top coat, you wouldn't get that same level of ink flow into all of the different channels of the panel line.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's where
that
that kind of
came from.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, there's something else I wanted to show, and I grabbed, the Gundam markers are also very helpful. Um, uh, I would draw on it some, and it doesn't look that great, but there's like the yellow, uh, yeah, the yellow vents. There's some venting. I guess it's kind of hard to see that goes around that I would have to paint yellow and um,
They're great for those little touch-ups.
yeah. But you can press down on them on something like a piece of paper or cardboard to get more paint to come out, and then get a little brush to get finer details if needed. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Well, I think with that, I need to ask you, because you had brought up a couple of new video games that you had mentioned, kind of
yeah,
shifting gears here.
yeah.
You had brought up a couple of video games when we were talking earlier, and yeah, I wanted to see what are you playing right now, and what are your takeaways from it? What can we learn as budding game developers?
Yeah, well, first of all is this game Sniper Elite 5, and it seems like those games in general might not be appealing to core gamers. I don't know, that might seem like something that just seems like a Madden, if you will. It's just another a sniper game. But these are pretty good games. The first one where I noticed this was a good series was with the third game, and I completed it.
Really?
And then that made me play through the fourth game and now the fifth. And so, what it is, did you ever play the Hitman series, the more recent Hitman games?
Yeah, see, I'm not familiar with Sniper Elite as a series. I'm familiar with Hitman. I think I've only played Hitman 2 a little bit,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
This what this is it does something too that I remember the original Crisis doing is It would be a level, but it would be a giant level where you can kind of do whatever you want in it. And Hitman is like that. It's a giant open world area. You can do whatever you want. The sniper games took that and ran with it. It was especially apparent in the last one. The third one had a little bit of it. There would still be some linear stuff. The fourth one did a good job, and the fifth one, it's even better. I just like the options it gives you. So when you play the game, it does seem like a double A game. It doesn't seem like a triple A game, and that's not a bad thing. I think there's differences between the big budget triple A games and then kind of the B tier double A games that you can tell could be more polished, but the game just plays well enough and good enough to have a good time.
And
What
sometimes,
this
like you
Oh
said,
yeah,
I
go ahead.
mean, like sometimes, those kind of double A games, the sacrifice that you make in terms of like graphics and some of the, nitty gritty details that you would expect from a triple A title, they more than make up for it in terms of the gameplay and just the experience, right?
Yeah, that is exactly the case, and it is apparent with the Sniper series. And so with this, um, again, you can kind of go wherever you want, and just like with Hitman, you can go and unlock other starting areas. So if you play it again, you can start somewhere else on the giant map, but then you just go about the game all you want. Now, a lot of this would tie back to our episode we did recently about artificial intelligence, because in this game, you are learning what the AI is so you can game it. Because the enemies have different alert levels. They have just kind of their standard white, whatever. Yellow means that they think something's going on. Red means they know for sure and they're trying to find you. And you can, and there's times where I try to play where I don't kill people. I try to just knock them unconscious, and they will stay unconscious for, I would say, most of the map. I haven't had a time where someone woke up, except when two AI enemies saw the guy laying there, ran up to him, and I was watching them. They went down, like, "Hey, are you okay?" Like they're trying to talk to him. And after a few minutes, the guy gets back up.
That is so cool.
Yeah, well, and it was more than a few minutes because I was hanging out at the area for a long time. But anyway, so it's fun to play this game and learn about the AI so you can get where you need to beat the level. But they've added something interesting in this that is a Dark Souls staple, and this is invasions. So as you're playing,
Ooh.
you can be invaded by a sniper, and that adds another layer that makes the game. So they've already made the game modern with leveling up, big open world areas, unlocks, XP, etc. But with the invading, I'll just be playing the level on an objective, and there's optional objectives you try to find too. And then it'll say you've been invaded. And along the map are phones that you can find. And if you use the phone, it will tell you where on the map the enemy is, but then it shows your location. Um, so there's times where I'll be playing and then I'm so involved in the mission, I forget that I was invaded because I'm still doing the mission. And then I'll notice an AI acting a little different than AI would, and I'm like, "Oh, that must be the player character." So then I would, try to kill them or or do things in a way to make it easy to get to them. But a lot of times they'll get me. They'll be off in the corner waiting for me to fight or do something so then they can see where I am and snipe me.
That's
But what's really
genius. I
cool
love that.
is yeah, and I think what makes this even better, like I love, don't get me wrong, I love Elden Ring. I love how hard it is, but what Sniper does, which is a nice change of pace, is there are checkpoints everywhere. So, like, if I get killed by the invader, I can start back up at the most recent checkpoint, which might have been in the middle of being invaded, just the invader won't be there. Or they make it so if I'm playing and I want to beat a mission and I get invaded, I know I can then have fun doing that and not lose my spot in the mission.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's
there's
great.
times where I've died and came back, died, came back, died, came back, because I kept getting killed. But you can choose to rematch with the sniper, so I can still do my mission, lay traps that they can get caught up in. It's a really good game, really good game.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've noticed that invasion mechanic has become more and more popular with kind of I don't want to say niche games. I want to say it's like genre games, right? I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, is it one of the is it a Far Cry title that has an invasion mechanic as well? Um
Is it? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played any of the recent ones,
I,
but I do know that there is another game that has been doing that outside of Dark Souls.
yeah,
I
I just
forget.
remember seeing a YouTube video on the subject of that very type of mechanic.
And
So
yeah, and
Alan's,
speaking of
oh, go ahead.
no, Alan was saying that, like we were just talking about, I think we need more AA games. I feel like games that are AA are usually better focused on mechanics and a premise rather than worrying about a crap ton of content. That's
Yep.
exactly right. You can look at how stale Assassin's Creed games have felt in general, because there's a crap ton of content and they are bloated. I mean, even now, from what I understand, is Ubisoft has been trying to position themselves for a sale, but they have way too much staff that no one would want to take them on
Oh yeah.
because there would be all that staff. And then Alan is saying, I would say the old Zionic Front or even Crossfire are AA games.
Yeah, I mean, I would accept that argument because a lot of those Eastern franchises, like a Gundam, they're not going to attract the kind of AAA money that, maybe a Star Wars franchise game would. And that's where you get, things like Gundam Battle Operation 2 versus, what was the newest? Was it Jedi Order was the newest Star Wars?
Fallen Order. Yeah.
Fallen Order. That's, I'm thinking of like the old Jedi Knight, like Jedi
Yeah.
Order 2, right?
But that is a great example because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm a huge video game fan. I don't think Jedi Fallen Order was a good game. I
Wow.
mean, it was Star Wars. It was open world game the game. Even though it wasn't fully open world, it was just one of those things where all it was all the tropes you'd expect out of a modern third person game. And if you want to talk about older Star Wars games, those older Star Wars games felt like you were playing a game in the Star Wars universe, whereas something like Fallen Order is more like a skin. It's like let's give an Assassin's Creed slash Dark Souls a skin.
Or like
Um,
Horizon or a
yeah,
lot of those. I mean, yeah, there really does seem to be a few formulas out there that people kind of latch onto and they say like, I want to make this, but with this slight change to it, right? Um,
yeah. And then yeah, I can move on to Diablo Immortal. There's
yes.
not much to talk about there, except I got the notification this morning it's available for download. I'd been so busy today, I hadn't got a chance to download it until right before the stream. But what's interesting is this was the Diablo game that was announced, I think, like last year or the year before. It was mobile only. Everyone got mad, up in arms.
You
They've
don't
since
have phones?
changed. Yeah, that's crazy. They've since changed that, and they make it where it's also on PC and it's cross-platform. Now,
It's
yeah, it's
very
interesting.
cool.
It does say June 2nd, so I wonder if it was just the pre-download available for today,
We
and maybe
could
that's
could be
um.
tomorrow.
And so here's something. I'm not a huge fan of the Diablo games. I like that type of gameplay. I just always felt the Diablo games were made to be, and I don't mean this in a bad way, like easy. They were just made to be a pastime more than like a challenging experience.
You know what they kind of remind me of are the current trend of games, the idle games, right?
Yeah,
Like Forgotten Realms, Idle Heroes, kind of these like idle RPGs where it's like you log in once a day, you do your farming quests, get resources just so that you can achieve another tool later on down the road. And of course, like cards on the table, full disclosure, I am not a Blizzard guy at all. I have never been into Diablo or Warcraft, even StarCraft, which you would argue is probably like right up my alley, an RTS
yeah.
game that's sci-fi. Never got into it for some reason. Um,
That's interesting because I would almost say the same thing, except I loved Warcraft and Starcraft because I love RTSs.
yeah,
Like
I mean, those
so,
are the godfathers of RTS, right?
yeah, and any game since then from Blizzard I have never cared about. Even Warcraft 3 was teetering on the edge of not being what I wanted. Um and um yeah, even StarCraft 2 was pretty fun, but yeah, I'm not really a Blizzard guy. So yeah, I kind of agree with you there.
Yeah.
Oh, G Norwood showed up here. Hey guys.
Hey,
Oh,
hey.
Zionic Shadow is in too. Nice. Nice to
What's up,
see you guys.
Shadow? How's it going? I saw my buddy Chop was on Twitch as well, checking us out.
That's
Now,
cool.
if I may divert
Yeah.
your attention, a game that I have been playing recently. This is I kind of downloaded it on a whim. Is again one of those double A titles. It's called Pray for the Gods. Came out a couple of years ago. It was kickstarted by a couple of developers. I want to say they are French, and it's supposed to be a spiritual successor to a Shadow of the Colossus, which I think you're about to
Oh,
see in this bit of gameplay just now. It is very much a passion project, I would say, because it is. I would call this video game a love letter to Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild
ooh,
um and Shadow of the Colossus. You have these huge cinematic boss battles. You have, they're like Titan size, and you're supposed to climb up them and attack their weak points. But you also have things like the paraglider that you would have in Legend of Zelda, and you have a lot of those sort of lock-on mechanics that you would expect from a Legend of Zelda game. You have your stamina and things like that. So it really is. Now, I will say that the controls of it felt kind of clunky at times. I think that, again, with a development team of two guys, you're probably going to run into some issues there where the gameplay is going to suffer a little bit. But
yeah.
but I think that overall they did a really good job of capturing that experience in a new way.
And this is, I remember hearing about this, but I haven't had time to look into it. Is this on PC only right now?
PS4 is where I got it.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And I if I remember correctly, it's only $20.
Oh,
So
wow.
not, yeah, I mean, it's like I said, they kickstarted the game a couple of years ago, so they had
Okay.
some startup funding, but yeah, the game itself is not too expensive. It's there's a pretty deep lore and story going on, but you're not going to get a lot of that from the gameplay because, you don't have things like cutscenes or voice acting. It's all told much in the similar way to Shadow of the Colossus, where you have just a brief moment here or there where you get some story, um
Okay.
but
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
no, when I first saw it, it reminded me because this is a game I liked, Immortals, Phoenix Rising. Did you hear about that game?
I heard about it. I never played it.
Yeah, that's an example of Ubisoft doing a double A game.
Oh, okay,
It's
perfect.
pretty good. And it reminds me a lot of Breath of the Wild. It's pretty much a Breath of the Wild clone. But I like the art style in this though, and it reminds me of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very fun game, and one of the other shout outs that I will give to Pray for the Gods is that the difficulty levels, you can choose just how involved you want the game to be, because as you can see, it's set in an Arctic environment, and there are environmental hazards. There are things like weapon damage and stuff like that. And they fine tuned it to the point where it's like, do you want to play a full on Breath of the Wild clone where your weapons are going to break after so and so hits?
Uh-huh.
Or do you want to, just play like a casual game? Do you want the environmental hazards to be so severe that you might die if you don't start a fire and keep warm for the night? Or do you just want to make sure that, your health will decrease if you're out in the cold for too long, but you do have the option of raising your health. You're not going to like instant die, right? So there's a lot of flexibility with how you want to experience the game. And I thought that that was really cool that they even offered that, because most games don't.
Yeah, that's a good point because something I didn't bring up from Sniper 5, it does the same thing. It has 4 difficulty levels and you can tweak each one. Because for the sniping, for instance, you can make it where there's no wind variance. It could just be a straight shot. How enemies detect you, a lot of stuff like that. So it's cool to see these options, I think, in games because, yeah, sometimes I just want to play for a specific mechanic so I can
Yeah.
focus on that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Um, so yeah, in that same vein, one of the things that I have been working on myself is a more dynamic character controller, and I mentioned this last week briefly because I gave a shout out to 1Z1 Games, which is a YouTube
Oh,
channel
yeah.
that has a great tutorial on the new Unity input system, which one of the sort of shout outs that I'll give to the Unity input system nowadays is that you have the option of going through these various interactions. It might be a little hard to see since it's so small on screen here. Um, but you have the ability to control what types of interactions with your button commands do certain things. And I was able to get that set up with the help of, like I said, my buddy 1Z1,
Oh yeah.
making sure that I didn't use any lambda expressions, which, to sort of clarify what that means, is when it comes to event systems in video games, you have to subscribe and unsubscribe to event listeners while you are, trying to track player inputs. And so what you have here is when the game is enabled, you have this list of character or of player inputs and what um functions to execute when the player executes those inputs. And then when you turn the game off, you unsubscribe from all of those. It's a very clean process. Now, there are other YouTube channels out there that will use what is called a lambda expression. It's when you use an equal sign and a little arrow, and you can
Yeah.
put the function directly into that phrase where it's like, okay, when you player interact performed, do this. You don't want to do that because you end up having a lot of sloppy code, especially when you get down into the specifics of it. And for instance, when we go down here into the this is a little bit of the nitty gritty code side of me. Right now, it's all debugs. I'm not doing anything. The character controller, it works in the sense that you can get the various inputs that you want out of it, but it's not working to the sense that the player is actually doing the things that I want him to do just yet. So right now it's just logging a lot of these details in the console. So like for instance, you look up at the top here, when it executes that attack function, it will read the context of that attack, which is the type of input, whether it's a held button down, whether it's a multi-tap, so like a double tap, whether it's just a tap and release. And then based on that, if it's a hold interaction, we do a strong attack. If it's just a multi-tap interaction, we do a combo attack. And if it's neither of those, then we're just going to do a simple melee attack. And so what this is going to do is it's my goal with this particular type of input reading is to create a very dynamic player experience where you can, if you tap the jump button, you're going to jump. If you hold the jump button, you're going to get that extra long jump, maybe even a bit of coyote time, which is where if you are approaching a ledge,
Yeah.
a lot of video games will cut that ledge off right at the end of the ledge. Coyote time will allow you to jump even if you have run a little bit off the ledge.
Yeah.
And then like multi-tap, we can do double jumps, we can do dashes. I want to give the player a very empowering experience where they can dash around the level, they can jump, they can double jump, they can wall jump, they can do all of these different things using just some minor button commands where it's like you don't have to hold down a trigger and then hit this button to do that. You just, it's either a hold, a tap, or a double tap.
Yeah, that seems to play off of what, Zelda was doing when the 3D Zelda games when it was trying to implement jump and all that. Yeah, the idea of like kind of giving the player some more options. Yeah, in a way. So
Yeah, that's the goal. And like I
yeah.
said, not to geek out too hard. I see Legion giving me a hard time. Stop torturing us with code. Um, but like I said, my goal is to create that kind of double A game for us
Yeah.
to
No,
enjoy.
no, that's really good. Yeah, because I really think we need more of that. A lot of these AAA games, like a Disney Star Wars, it's playing it safe.
Yep.
You know,
And a lot of the indie games out there are a little too simplistic, right?
yeah, you know what? That's a good point because I was the type that I was all into indie games no matter what. When they came out, I would play them, I would enjoy them. And I think something happens when, the medium of video games isn't as old as we think when we think of like movies or TV because it's had time for people to get used to things. So for me, I remember when there was this renaissance of indie games, they'd come out with like oh, was their audio desynced for anyone else? Well, Scott, um
Yeah,
I
I
hope
sure
not,
hope not. That
but I
would be
hope not for
bad.
you as well, Scott. But, no, like, they'd start coming out with the top-down shooters, And one of the most recent ones, oh, I forgot what's that cyberpunk top-down shooter that just came out? Like the end of last year. I can't think of it off the top of my brain, but what happened was it came to a point where it's like, okay, I've played this, I've done this. Like,
Right.
I think there's something where a developer will like a certain style and they'll wanna make it, but some people have played enough of a game where it's like, this doesn't appeal to me anymore. But then there's always people out there that a certain game would appeal to just because the market is so much bigger. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
So
The
let's see.
market's so big.
Ruiner,
S Oh,
Shadowrun.
was it Ruiner? It might have been Ruiner, because that actually Ruiner is one, but I don't think it's that. No, that actually well, no, it says 2017. It was one that came out last year. But no, Ruiner looked familiar. That's the thing, a lot of these games came out that were kind of the same top-down shooters, and over time, I was like, "Yeah."
Well, and right now you have tons of kart games out, right? Like, it's not enough to have Mario Kart. We've got Nintendo Kart, or not Nintendo,
Oh, the
Nintendo,
Sega.
but you got Nickelodeon Mario Karts, and now I've been getting ads on Twitter for the like Family Guy
Oh,
and Simpsons kart sim.
and the Smash Brothers alike.
Yeah,
They have that new DC one
multiverses.
coming out, or
Yeah.
Warner Brothers,
Um,
fighting game.
so now this is probably a good question for you. So Matt says, thoughts on the FromSoft announcement of its latest Mecha Magnum Opus.
I if is this the new Armored Core? I don't know too much about it. Um yeah, I don't know too much about it, but here's what I will say. Um I played previous Armored Core games. I just never found them to be as amazing as a Dark Souls game. Now, I will be soon having a PS3. Thank you, Steven. So I'm gonna, and I've already bought the Gundam Unicorn. Um, and I really want to try that out because that is from Soft doing a mech game again, like their other ones. But I'm curious how much it's going to retain some of that identity of the Souls-like experience. And I would almost think if there's a new Armored Core game coming out, and we know what FromSoft is capable of in terms of money, Bandai Namco is the publisher, I'm sure, for FromSoft games. Probably not all like Sony with Bloodborne, but I wonder with this Armored Core, if they're going to expect a certain level of, okay, if FromSoft is making this game, we're going to leverage the pedigree of FromSoft, not the IP, to set an expectation of it being a Souls-like experience. Because wasn't it that uh, Elden Ring sold like 18 million um, as of like last month, I think, which is insane. Um,
Yeah.
so I wonder if that's going to change, yeah, FromSoft's output.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I wonder. I would like them, and that there's nothing in it for me because I don't have a PS5. Uh, I would like them to make it a next gen exclusive if they are going to make an Armored Core game because I want them to leverage the new hardware. I want them to make the most of out of that and really, you know, kind of threaten us to buy a PS5. Those of us that are
Well,
still held out.
you bring up a good point because I've been reading into this lately. So the manufacturing for the PS5s are putting Sony in a position where not only does the PS4 still outperform the PS5, but it's almost at Switch levels. So Sony is in a position where they are needing to continue to support the PS4.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is that new Gotham game, a DC game. I'm not too into it, but it's one of those Warner Brothers like four-player co-op Gotham, your Nightwing and stuff.
That's kind of cool.
They've decided to make it just next gen, which is very interesting.
It's an interesting call. I hope that they do something with the mechanics or um, something with maybe the camera angles. I want them to kind of elevate it. Don't just make it a next gen game to make it a next gen game because we've played Marvel Ultimate Alliance, like we've played those 4-player co-op adventure games.
Yeah.
So how are you going to leverage the new system in order to push the envelope in terms of the gameplay experience? Or is it just going to be one of those clones that you're only going to develop for the new system?
But I'm wondering if you have any insight into this. What would be some next gen gameplay mechanics that would be must buy. I mean, just thinking about the N64, I remember seeing um Shadow what is it called? The Star Wars
Oh,
Shadow of the Empire?
Shadow of the Empire. Yeah,
Yeah.
with the Outrider and
Yeah, when I saw that game on the N64, I was like, and Mario 64, it's like you gotta buy an N64.
oh yeah.
But with PS5, for me, it was just, and the Series X was just having the latest console. And Demon Souls is amazing on PS5. But other than that, there has not been any gameplay mechanic or improvement at all this new gen.
Yeah. And you know, I think that to kind of encapsulate everything that we've been talking about is it really comes down to we need more of those double A quality games where you're not
Yeah,
relying on the hardware specifically just for graphics output. You know, I think that things like ray tracing are cool. That is a brilliant innovation and it adds something to the realism of your video games. But you know, and maybe this is just for guys like us in our 30s that are used to playing old, you know, 8 and 16-bit video games, but like I could care less how the shadows bounce off of the wall in terms of the graphics. Now, if
yeah,
you were to tell me that if I were to bounce light off of something and the enemy AI responds to it, then that is the type of next gen mechanic that I'm looking for, right? Is
very good point.
it
Yeah,
is like, okay, we know that ray tracing exists. We know that we can generate dynamic lighting in video games in real time without having to bake anything. But now, how are we going to utilize that? How are we going to make that a mechanic? And how are we going to make players have to change the way that they play a game because of that? Because if it's just to make it look pretty, I could care less.
and that reminds me, I think it might have to be done. Maybe this is a bad example. I was thinking Portal because Portal hasn't really spawned games to use its mechanic, but Valve, like with Half Life and the physics, I could see a time where water is used, where if an enemy's walking over water, there's not just like enemy walks over water, they slip. It's like how many particles make up that section of water that they're walking over, and that might cause the enemy to do something different. You might play that would be like the next Portal, where you're playing with tubes of water and changing the pressure and causing different things to happen. Yeah, I think
That's a genius idea because
so.
that's a level of physics interaction that I don't think we've seen.
Yeah, yeah, not at all.
Well,
Oh, there
let's
was that one multiplayer shooter that did portals. I forget the name. Yeah, that was one that had like Halo like gameplay with the portals. Slipgate, I think it was called. Yeah.
Well, as we are getting to the end of this here, it looks like a lot of people are not excited for the Arkham Knight game. Looks like chunky and slow compared to the old Arkham games.
Yeah,
Um,
when that reveal came out, people weren't that excited about it. And people are getting tired of how in Arkham specifically, like you go to attack one person, and if someone's behind you and you go to attack them, you like fly toward them like your punch is a giant animation across the screen just to land on them.
yeah, it's a little bit much. I appreciate the level of IK attention that they gave to the animations, but
Yeah.
it gets a little ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I would be remiss if I did not mention that this is a big week for us Gundam fans because this Friday, Fukaru's Doan's Island hits theaters. Well,
Oh yeah.
hits theaters in Japan, so I can't wait to watch some shaky cell phone video of it and with poor fans subs because I haven't heard. Have you? I mean, you tell me. Have you heard anything about Fukaru's Doan's Islands being released in the West or in dub or sub fashion?
No, and that's one thing I'm hoping to hear every day when I wake up. But from what I understand, and I think someone mentioned this because I totally forget, they didn't announce the Western release until like that week it came out in Japan of Hathaway. I'm sorry, I meant to say for Hathaway. Like after the week it
True.
came out in Japan, they then released or announced the Western release. So maybe whoever it is, Netflix maybe, are waiting to see the response to determine how to do it? Because how does that work? Where maybe Sunrise is seeing the response and like, oh, this responded so well. Let's release it in theaters, or let's not have it exclusive to Netflix. Let's have it on Vudu, for instance, to buy it.
Yeah.
I just want. I don't think I would bother watching it if there was no English sub or dub.
Yeah. I mean,
Just because it would I would it's almost like I would be at the edge of my seat the whole time, like, "What are they saying?"
I've been keeping my ear to the ground for, and it's a shame that this is one of the many things that has plagued us since COVID are the Fathom events. I remember that Fathom
Oh,
used
yeah.
to partner with a lot of theaters, and you actually would see a lot of Gundam movies that they would do screenings of, like Char's Counterattack in theaters, and I was like, yes, sign me up immediately. Like, even if it's a sub, sometimes I prefer dubs, but even if it's a subbed anime movie, something that we're not traditionally going to get exposed to in the West, I don't know what the success rate of those Fathom events has been in the past. I've maybe been to one or two in the last 6 years. Obviously none in the last two. So, you know, if they had, I feel like there would have been announcements prior if they were planning to do a Fathom Events theater release in the west of Kukuru's Doan's Islands. Uh, I keep adding S's to everything.
It's so hard to say that
Kukuru's
title.
Doan's Island. Um,
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
yeah, back in 2019, I always remember 2019 is when I got into Gundam, but it was actually that holiday, that December, that yeah, Char's Counterattack was at a Fathom Events thing at a theater near me. Last minute, I didn't go because it ended up being a coworker came into town and he was going to stay at my place, so that kind of changed things, and I missed it. But I remember when I was looking at tickets, there were places where it was sold out. And so it was cool to see that. Although, you
yeah,
know what? I haven't heard of Fathom events in a while. I wonder if since COVID, because yeah, that was December 2019. I wonder if since COVID, either it's just gone away or subsided in its marketing. But I would think they would, if they haven't now, they would probably start getting back to that since the theaters have been doing a lot better.
yeah, yeah. I would hope so. So that's kind of what I'm holding out hope for, is that we'll get that kind of Western theatrical release. If not, I don't mind, watching it on some sketchy website. But yeah, I mean that's how it was for like Thunderbolt and Twilight Axis, right? We just had to watch them when we could.
I
Um,
haven't seen Twilight Axis. I've been looking for it too. Is there a way to watch that?
I'll hit you up after the stream, and
Okay.
we'll share it on
Yeah.
the Discord, because I'm pretty sure that
Nice.
the Twilight Axis stream is still live
Oh,
on some
okay.
sites. But that leads me to my final point, which is I am working on a Kukuru's Doan Zaku of my own. Oh, well, hold on. Let me close this window here. For those of you who are so generous as enough to support me, and the stream, to support Adam and I with this weekly show that we're doing, I try to create added value for the patrons and supporters of the stream. One of the things that I do is I like to make 3D models of things, and create, Gundam miniatures and 3D Gunpla for people to download. So one of the things that I'm thinking of doing here is I've got what is a this is a 1/400th scale Zaku 2 model that I've 3D printed this as a miniature in the past. And I mean,
Mhm.
we can go between the rest position, which is, this is how it looks like when it's not posed, all cool looking, and then we can go back into our posed position. I'm thinking of, in honor of Kukuru's Doan's Island, going through and adding that elongated snout that is so
Yeah.
trademark of the Doan Zaku, and
Yeah.
and adding that to the catalog of 3D models that we have available for download. Right now, it's just a GM ground type with a weapons rack. Um, And again, I'm very new to this, like creating things for people to download and use. So more product oriented stuff. So if you do have any feedback on the 3D models, if you wanted pre-supported models, please let me know about that kind of stuff on
Mm.
Patreon or on Locals. But yeah, the idea is to create things like this to share with you, because I really don't see a lot of opportunities to share these types of products with people.
Yeah, I gotta fire up my 3D printer again. When I first got it, the Ender 3, um, I remember I was looking up Gundam stuff all the time to print, and there was not much. I mean, there might be more now, but back, yeah, when I was 3D printing, there's just not much there. There's more now, and obviously you're doing it too. Yeah, when it comes to supports, have you printed it in that pose yet?
So I have printed it in this pose in two fashions. I've printed it as a single piece, and then I've also printed it in three pieces where I printed the
Oh,
torso, legs, and head as one piece, and then I printed the arms individually. And I did that because I installed magnets
ah,
into the joints
I
of
was
the
just
arms.
gonna suggest that.
Yeah,
That is awesome.
yeah, you do it up Warhammer style, right?
That is
One of the
awesome.
things that like someone a user commented on one of my YouTube videos about things like cockpit hatches and things like that.
Mm,
And one of the things that I wanted to get better at when it comes to posing these models is, for instance, you see there's a bit of clipping here between the
mm,
skirt and the thigh, and that can really break the realism of the model. So what I would
yeah.
do here is I would come in here and I've actually created armature bones. So it's the skirt is rigged in such a way that you can manipulate individual flaps of the skirt. And if we hop back,
Yeah, to stop the clipping depending on the pose you have it in.
exactly. Now I've done this. Yeah. Now, in some
Wow.
cases, you want a little bit of clipping for 3D printing purposes because that just creates extra support for that piece,
Yeah.
especially if it's not going to move, right?
Yep.
Um, but as far as using this model for a video game, you can actually create those bones so that they are on a hinge and that they are loose. And that way, when the animation is playing, those skirts will flap naturally as if they are just kind of hinged to the waist, which is awesome.
And you made this in Blender?
This is in Blender, yeah.
Yeah, because I guess even with what you've made right here, not only could you use that to 3D print, you could put it in a game. You could probably drop it into some CGI software to make some CGI short or something. I mean, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, what you have here. And did you just do that by hand? You'd get random shapes and then form them?
Yeah, so I'll work uh from concept arts and turnarounds and things like that. For some of the weapons, like for instance this Heat Hawk I actually pulled, it's from a game rip of I think from the 0081 game on PS3.
Oh,
Things like that I don't really feel like getting into the nitty-gritty
yeah.
of modeling. But yeah, I mean, the sculpting robots is a little easier than sculpting people.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I always know when I like to draw. I I don't do it too often now, but for me, it was the opposite. I was really good at organic things, but anything that was mechanical for some reason with hard edges, I had trouble with.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's hard to do. So,
so that is,
and
yeah,
all
good
of
work.
the so I have the fully posed and rendered 3D print files are available on Patreon for those who are generous enough to support. But if you just want the Blender files to dig into and pose yourself and stuff like that, those are available for free on the Discord where Adam and I like to hang out and chat and talk Gundam and Gundam 5e and all sorts of various video game topics and stuff like that. So definitely hop down in the details below and join the Midnight Hatter Discord as well as the Gundam Explained Discord. You're going to meet a lot of cool people, and we've got a lot of cool assets and features for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah, that's a cool Discord. A lot of activity there, a lot of resources for people that are just into gaming in general, like all types of gaming and music. There's nice music shared in that Discord.
Yeah, yeah. The metalheads are happy over there. Me, I'm more of like the synthwave disco guy, so
Oh,
I'm sitting over here in
hey,
the corner.
synthwave is my second love after metal.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that was all I wanted to share as far as that goes. Just that
Cool.
that's something for the July supporters are going to get a Doan's Zaku to 3D print, which, like you said, I would like to see if you do fire up the old Ender 3. I would like to see what you
Yeah.
come out with because I'm working off of an Elegoo Mars, and so I have
Yeah.
yet to see what the result of a is it called an FLM printer?
Um, I've PLA
FDM.
or I don't actually don't. Yeah, what is the name? I know it's the filament, the
Yeah,
plastic filament instead of the
instead of the UV resin.
yeah, the resin. That's right. Yeah, which to me that's completely different stuff. But there's some crossover with what 3D printers can do. So
Agreed.
yeah,
Yeah. So I definitely want to see what people can print out of it
yeah,
and see the results because I want to get better at doing it.
yeah. I'm gonna have to give it a shot.
Cool. Well, I think that is about all we had to walk through this evening. Like I said, it was a packed slate of things to discuss
Yeah.
because we've got, Kukuru's Doan going on this week. We've got Diablo going on this week. You and I have both been playing some new games. Well,
Yep.
new to us games, I suppose we should say.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to share before we sign off for the evening?
No. Although in the chat, John Gavin is saying while I was getting in info for Top Gun, I saw a lot of Fathom events for Macross. I haven't seen
That's
Macross. That would be a good um experience. And then Legion says, "What in God's name is a Fathom event?" I may be too northern to understand. And it's really a company that would host, through theater chains, uh, putting on movies that don't see theatrical releases anymore.
yep.
Anime is one thing. Sometimes just older movies that are popular. It was kind of a cool little thing they would do where it'd be like one or two showings on a random weekday,
Yeah.
maybe or
Miyazaki
something like that.
features get a lot of Fathom events.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, our poor brethren up to the north in Canada don't get all of the cool things that we get down here.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, hey, thank you guys for keeping the chat lively and for hanging
Yeah.
out with us while we, kind of nerd out about some of this stuff. Like I said, there was a lot to cover, so if we missed anything, do hit us down in the comments below and let us know what we did wrong.
Yep.
Do check out the Gundam Explained YouTube channel. There's links to the Gundam Explained YouTube channel as well as the Gundam
Oh
Explained
yeah.
Discord down below, and consider being a supporter of that channel. Get access to movie nights. If you can't get to a
Yep.
Fathom event, you can get to a Gundam Explained movie night. So
Yeah.
just again added value. Um,
Yep.
and then yeah, we are going to be live tomorrow evening, 8:30
Yep.
Eastern, 7:30 Central, to talk more Gundam
Out more Gundam. Yeah.
over
Can't
on
wait.
the Gundam Explained channel. And yeah, again, thank you guys so much. I appreciate all the support. Hope you guys
Yep.
are having a good evening. Have a good rest of your week and be kind to each other.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was nice. See y'all.